Welcome back, TTM Trade. So today we're gonna be talking about ticker SPY. Now we are gonna be talking about the futures for the S&P 500 because what I love about the futures is I kick over here to ticker SPY. You'll see on this daily chart there's a lot of gaps. You know, gap up here, gap up here, gap down, gap down, gap up, gap up. There's just gaps all throughout the SPY chart, right? And the reason for that is because the futures market, right? Once the SPY, S&P 500, or the stock market in general in the United States shuts down to 1600. Then you have different markets that open up, such as the Asian markets, um, European markets later on that, early or later, late that night, going into the morning, so on and so on. So on and so forth. So with that being said, the futures are still trading. Now, I love to watch the futures because you can see the price action swing throughout the night and kind of get a good idea of how it's going to play out going into the next day as far as ticker SPY. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the daily chart over here on your right hand side. I do multiple time frame analysis, so you will always see me have the daily chart, 2 hour chart, 30-minute chart, right? It's like a snowball effect. Moves you see play out on a 30-minute chart will feed into your 2 hour chart. The stronger that move is on a 30-minute chart, it builds the 2 hour chart picture. The stronger the 2 hour chart gets, the stronger the daily chart gets. Okay, so multiple time frame analysis is very important. All right, so you always see me have these three charts pulled up. Now, just looking at the daily. All right, and again, this is the futures to the S&P 500, but ticker SPY set up the exact same way, same setup. This one just trades pretty much almost 24 hours around the clock. Okay, so you could kind of see the price action a little bit better. But as you see here on the daily chart, we are still in a solid uptrend. Okay, we're holding above the middle Bollinger Band, which is the 30 SMA. I do not use the 20 SMA. I use the 30 SMA with a 150 period moving average. And there's a reason for that, which I'll explain later on. But it's still holding above that middle Bollinger Band, which is the 30 SMA. And as you see, each time it's pulled back ever since this run up back in October 2020. Each pullback, you get a hit with some buying, pullback with a hit and some more buying, slight pullback with another run up, always creating higher lows and higher highs. Now, what happened recently is we pulled back, hit that 30 SMA, the middle BB, and we tapped the bottom one standard deviation, and then immediately some buying came into play, and now we're kind of just sitting right here in the middle, consolidating, and this kind of leaves room for us to go either direction. All right, now the overall setup for uptrend to continue, it does not look too good to me personally, because there's a lot of work that has to happen here on the 30-minute and 2 hour chart to correct this move here on a daily. But what we do see is the RSI, which is trending above its averages quite well, holding to the averages moving, has kind of finally just broke through those averages. And you see, even though we had this slight buying today, the RSI didn't really recover strong enough to reflect this slight buying throughout the day today. All right. The PMO is starting to cross over, no longer able to hold above its short-term average here, the yellow line, and the long-term average is still just below. But the PMO has crossed over, as you can see, which means that upside momentum is slowing down. Price action is consolidating. This here is the Bollinger Band width. All right. That blue line reflects the volatility. All right. As you can see, price action has been pretty volatile, and now it's starting to come below its 30 SMA average. And when you see it start to droop below that 30 SMA average, that means that the Bollinger Bands are beginning to constrict. Now, the reason the bands are beginning to constrict around the price action is because the price action isn't moving at a fast enough momentum to break out of the bands, which would make them expand, as you see here. Okay, so when the price action moves at a very fast rate, whether up or down with strong momentum and buying and or selling pressure behind it, the bands will expand and you will see these slight pops in the Bollinger Band width, as you see here, with this strong breakout to the downside and a strong swing back to the upside. The bands swung pretty wide to reflect that volatility, but now we've been in this kind of tight range for the past month, starting in December, not really moving too fast at a fast rate. And you can see the price action is beginning to consolidate very tightly. Now, what I was expecting here was a slight breakout to the upside. I thought we was going to get that breakout to the upside on 400. As you can see, the volatility was starting to pick up here. But soon we broke out to the upside slightly, which is why we came over this average here. The price action immediately sold off, and now we're right back here in this middle area, consolidating. Okay. Now, where do we go from here? Okay, what happens moving forward on a daily chart? All right, because we can either push back up to this 381 area where the top one standard deviation Bollinger Band is at. And technically, this is what we want to get above to try to get that uptrend started. Okay, anytime a stock is in a strong uptrend, it will hold above that middle Bollinger Band and this top one standard deviation Bollinger Band. So, just to give you an example, if I go here to the weekly, you can see here anytime the weekly chart is in a strong uptrend, it will hold that top one standard and that middle Bollinger Band to show that strong upward momentum. Same thing here. We've been in a strong upward momentum, and it's constantly been holding on a week to week basis. But now we're starting to see that momentum slow down here on the daily. All right. But going back to the daily, I just deleted my line. Excuse me. Going back to the daily, the price action is consolidating very tight, which again, it says that the on a day-to-day basis, the chart upward momentum is beginning to slow down. Okay. Now, past couple of days, we called that the price action had to dip down to 375 back on January 25th. We said this was going to dip down to 325. I mean, 375. And then we got that dip down to 375 to 372. That's what we said. We said, hey, we're looking for a 375 to 372 pullback on January 25th. And then we got that 375 to 372 right here on the money pullback. And then once we got that 375 to 372 pullback, we were looking for a 380 rally, which I posted here. All right, 375, 372 pullback. Now what? I meant to say 380 rally, but as you can see here, then we broke back out to the upside and we rallied back to that 380 area as we was looking for. All right, so these moves, and again, you won't always predict the moves and get these price hits perfectly, but if you zoom in on the intraday charts, it kind of gives you an idea of what you're going to see on the daily moving forward. So if we go here to the 30-minute chart, the reason we were starting to notice a breakdown on the SPY, if you look here in the 30-minute chart, all right, and here, let me go down to two charts. If we look here on the 30-minute chart, right, the PMO was already all right. It fell below its averages, and it was just kind of consolidating sideways with the price action not really going nowhere. And we kind of established support and a resistance. Okay, that resistance was sitting right at 385, and the support was sitting right at 380 as we kind of swung back and forth between those two lines. All right. Now the biggest thing for me is when the PMO beginning to start losing momentum. Okay, I utilize my PMO to identify strong momentum. Okay, it moves exactly like the MACD, but I have smoothed this average all the way out, so that way every single one of these small moves it doesn't react to. It only reflects the bigger trend. Okay, so once I begin to see the PMO start to slip below its averages, just as such. All right. And I seen the price action was consolidating at the same time. I knew that we were going to have a breakout. All right. Anytime you get consolidation where the price action is below its average, as you see here, you can see this is a consolidation cycle right here. All right. So if I take two lines from here to here, this time frame right here, we were in a very tight consolidation cycle. As you can see, the bands was very tight. Now, the biggest thing is which direction are we going to go? Okay, because volatility is cyclical, right? You have low volatility, high volatility, low volatility, high volatility, low volatility, high volatility, low, high. Volatility is cyclical, okay? The biggest thing is knowing when you're in a consolidation cycle and knowing when you're about to move into a breakout cycle. And this is what the Bollinger Band width helped me identify. So one, I know we're in a consolidation cycle, meaning the price action is in between the strong support and the strong resistance. And we're going to break out to the upside and or the downside soon. Now, how do we kind of identify which direction we're going to break up or down to? Well, I'll go to the PMO and I say, hey, we're in a consolidation cycle. looking at the PMO, we've already lost this upward momentum that is beginning to fade, and it looks like we're going to start fading to the downside. I go up into the RSI, which catches pretty much every small move, unlike the PMO, which just kind of reflects the overall strength of the trend. The RSI will reflect every small move, but I begin to notice the RSI was struggling to get back above its more medium term of an average, as you can see here, this purple line. And again, when we're in a strong uptrend, remember, like I said, we will maintain above that 30 SMA and stay right in this top one standard deviation Bollinger Band. So we had a culmination of being below that middle Bollinger Band. RSI is showing weakness to the downside. The PMO is fading to the downside. And we're in a consolidation cycle, meaning that we are about to break out in one or two directions at a very fast pace. Okay. So these were all signals that we're going to break down to the downside on the 30-minute chart. So now we say, okay, we're going to break down to the downside of the 30-minute chart. What is a key area of support that we may break down into? Now, if we go to the daily here, we know that each time we pulled back and hit that middle Bollinger Band on the daily chart, we've seen some buying pressure come into play each and every time. Hit, buying pressure come into play. So when I was looking at a price target to hit as far as to the downside, I went to the daily chart and I looked and I said, okay, well, that middle BB is sitting right at 375. And then we have this bottom one standard deviation, which was sitting close to around 370 to 372. So we was looking to take puts to the downside right around that price range. Okay. Now, as we begin to take that move to the downside, as planned, once we hit right in that 370 range, as you can see here, that bottom is right at 370. It correlated right with that bottom one standard deviation Bollinger Band. Okay. Now, the biggest thing I was looking for to see was that area of support going to hold. All right. Now, what is true for uptrend is true for a downtrend. All right. Strong uptrend, you're above that middle BB and you're trending above that top one standard deviation. Strong downtrend, you're below that middle BB and you're trending below that bottom one standard deviation. All right. So once I begin to see that we hit the 370 and some strong buying pressure came into play, and we started to pull back to retest for a double bottom. This time we stayed within the bands. All right. We didn't push back outside the band. So that showed that that downward momentum was slowing up. And at the same time, to also reflect that downward momentum was showing slowing up. If we take these two lines, you'll see that the PMO soon got right around that 370 price target we was talking about. The price action began to, the PMO began to slow down and flatten out, moving back towards its average. You'll see here the RSI begin to cross back upwards and get above its short-term and long-term average. You can see that long-term average was acting as resistance. The RSI couldn't get above it. Finally got that break above it, and now we're sitting under that support. PMO's flattening out, and now we're going into a consolidation cycle. As you can see, that high spike in volatility to show that strong downward momentum had started to slow down. Okay, showing that that selling pressure to the downside has slowed up. So once we saw that, we wanted to look and say, okay, well, we know we're going to get a run up to the upside. What is a potential price target we can look for going to the upside? And we said 380. All right. Reason why we said 380 is if you see, if we hit that 370 we originally talked about going back to the upside, as you push up, you can see that that 380 is sitting right here at the top one standard deviation Bollinger Band. All right. Now, the top one standard deviation Bollinger Band is very important because I said if we get back above this 380, then that will put the daily chart back in the setup of going back into an uptrend. Because again, remember, above that middle BB and holding above this top one standard deviation Bollinger Band shows that the chart is in a strong uptrend. All right. So by the daily getting it back above this 380 to 381 and closing and holding, then this will show that on a day-to-day basis, we're possibly going to break out and try to create a higher high above this 385 ceiling that's currently sitting there. All right. But the price target was 380 because, as you can see, this upward momentum has been slowing up ever since mid-December, and it doesn't look like it's going to continue. All right, so I highly doubted that we was going to get back above that 380. So what we did is we locked in calls back to the upside to 380. We rode this back up to 380, and soon we got back into that 380 range. We started to see a sell-off. All right, multiple time frame analysis. I'm gonna go kick this one over to the 30-minute chart, bring the 30-minute chart here, and I'm gonna bring the 5-minute chart up here. Now, what I was looking at on the 5-minute chart, right, multiple time frame analysis, as we was getting up to this 380 range right here, okay, that 380 ceiling that's sitting there, we'll just put 380, 381. This is what we was looking at, the ceiling. As we begin to get up into that 380 window, I zoomed down into the 5-minute chart to see how it was holding above its averages. Now you can see that PMO is very strong above its averages, right? Above the zero line, showing that the price action was very bullish. But as we started to get in that 380 range as the target, I began to notice the PMO was flattening out. Okay, that high spike in volatility to show the momentum to the upside breakout beginning to slow down. As you can see, the momentum is slowing down and the bands are beginning to constrict around the price action. And not only is that upward momentum beginning to slow down, the PMO is starting to fade out. It crosses below a short-term average. And then the RSI, which was holding very well, started to fade out. And then once I seen it try to recover that more longer term average here and get rejected, then we went ahead and closed out that 380 position. And now you can see we faded back to the downside. Okay. So what are we looking at now? Okay. We got the 372 to 375 pullback. We got the 380 rally that we was looking for. Where did we go here? Where did we go? Where do we go to now? Okay. So we go back to the 30-minute, 2-hour, in the daily. All right, we already know that the daily chart is sitting limbo right in this middle area. We know we got a 381 ceiling and we got a 370 support. Okay, so we got about a 10-point spread as far as support and resistance. So where did we go here? Well, we know one, we need to recover this 380 and get back above it to set the daily chart back up in an uptrend. Okay, do I think we're going to get back above it? I don't know. But I do know if we break below this 370, then that will put us into a downtrend and start that downward momentum as far as the sell-off goes. Okay, so not even looking at the daily, we take the daily out the picture because we already know the line of support and the line of resistance. If we zoom in now and go 2-hour, 30-minute, 5-minute, we can kind of get a picture of what's going on. All right, so 380 on the 30-minute chart, resistance, 370 support. All right, if we look at the 5-minute chart as of right now, you can see as we got that bounce on 370, rallied back up to the middle BB and pulled back, you can see the 5-minute chart is already starting to recover from this downward momentum. And you can see the PMO, same pattern as we just talked about. PMO starting to flatten out. This downward momentum as far as volatility is slowing down. As you can see, the bands are beginning to constrict around the price action. You can see the RSI, which was strongly showing that downward momentum, start to recover back above both averages. So it looks like we're going to get another swing back here to the upside to reattempt this 380 area that we see here on the that we pointed out on the daily chart. Now, one thing that's very important, let me pull up the 30-minute chart. That's a better picture. 5-minute chart. All right, this deep pullback you see here is more in depth on this 5-minute chart. You can see it. But what we need to see here is we need to see this 30-minute chart hold above its 2 averages here. You can see that it never got back above the zero line, which is very important because above the zero line, we're very bullish. All right. But again, the 5-minute chart needs to be strong enough as far as momentum and constantly creating these breakouts to the upside, making higher highs and higher lows to where it sets the 30-minute chart up for strong momentum to the upside, which it helps up the 2-hour chart up. Okay. So it looks like tomorrow we're going to get another rally to that 280 area. I wouldn't be surprised if we rally back to the 285 to reattempt that resistance one more time. But the 2-hour charts needs to fully recover. All right. So what we want to see is we want to see the 2-hour chart, all right, flatten out like it's currently doing right now. And we want to see this downward momentum on the 2-hour chart begin to subside and slow down. All right. Once we get this Bollinger Band with slowing down, then we could possibly get a breakout to the upside and see where we go from there.